I
But
will.
let's start by saying that it's 7:05 p.m. Monday, March 22nd, and this is the meeting of the Ordinance Oversight Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The chair of the Ordinance Oversight Committee, due to the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis and in accordance with Governor Sununu's Emergency Order Number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, has determined that this committee is authorized to meet electronically. The public is welcome to attend with certain social distancing guide. There is no physical location for this meeting. However, the public is willing to participate by watching on these ways. This is to confirm that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We're utilizing the Zoom platform for this electronic meeting. All members of the council have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through the Zoom platform. The public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through dialing the following phone number: 646-558-8656, access code 911-702-5727, or by going to the following web address: https://zoom.us/j/911-702-5727. It is also being streamed live on the town website, newmarketnh.gov, and channel 13 locally. We are providing public notice of the necessary information for the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public on how to access this meeting using Zoom, and instructions are provided on the town of Newmarket's website, newmarketnh.gov. And we're providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there's any problems with access. If there's any issues, please dial 603-659-3617, extension 1321. And if there is an issue, we will adjourn the meeting. Please note that all votes, if any, will be taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call. Take roll call attendance for the 3 committee members. So we'll do the traditional. Let me just pull down my thing. Council Weinstein.
Sorry, I'm here.
And alone?
Yes.
Okay. Council Brayback.
I'm present and alone.
Council Dumont.
There we go. Present and alone.
Okay. Back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. So let's begin tonight. Just a brief recap.
You're muted.
Thank you. Yeah. First, I do not have minutes from our previous meeting. Those will be for our next meeting. We'll go over those and this meeting. It kind of got a little bit busy, so I do apologize. I wanted to more or less just get right down into business. I understand that there are folks in the public who are joining this meeting tonight, and I understand our reason for being here did stem from several complaints that we had received from members of the town for a specific business that was having live music. And I do understand that that may be contentious for the parties that are involved, but I think it's important to understand that when we're looking at this issue, we are looking at from a town-wide perspective, not a specific resident or a specific business or a specific complaint. Ways of improving the community for everybody. And I think it's important to put that out there. Now, going back off of our language proposal that the town manager was kind enough to put together, I did want to ask you, Steve, this was I believe it was mostly Somersworth, but a couple other communities.
Yes, that's correct. Mostly Somersworth.
Okay. I guess one of the things that I guess we should start figuring out is, are we looking specifically at creating a licensing board for all manner of items that could eventually apply to the town, or should we tailor it more to live music and live events?
Under RSA chapter 286, they actually have a list of items that are there. That's just what is in this permit: to solicit funds, erect banners, tag days, conduct parades or processions, festivals or races, walkathons, public demonstrations, or protests on public property or highways, or to conduct a carnival, a tent show, fair, circus, public dance exhibition, or demonstration, any open air public meeting, live music shows, disc jockeys, karaoke, or amplified music event in which the public is invited to pay. So that it's actually outlined in state law. That's why they do it this way.
Fair enough. I personally did go through chapter 286. I love some of the dated language, but it seemed to be all encompassing. So just from our perspective, trying to see, are we just doing it based off of what's allowed under 286 or just versus, a la carte, pick and choose kind of, but that's fair. Did Did our counselors and our police officer joining us have a chance to review the language that was sent out?
We did.
Fantastic.
And just to let you
I
know,
guess-
just real quick too, the town attorney did review it. as
Okay,
well.
no issues. I take
Nope.
it. Okay. I guess I'll open this up to our committee members to see if they had some thoughts on it, some feelings, maybe some ideas. I just had a couple items, but I'm sure they'll get addressed as we go on. Did anybody want to volunteer to start with their comments? Councilor Weinstein?
So I had a bunch of questions and comments about a few different items in this. So the first is tag days. I don't even know what that is. Is that like a yard sale? No.
Now, tag days are when usually you see a sports team, there's a kid, the kids stand outside the Rite Aid or whatever, with little containers that say,
Oh,
the reasoning for that one is so we can make sure it's legitimate.
okay. No, that's super helpful. I had no idea what that was. And yeah, some of the other language. So, I mean, the movie theater is self-explanatory. Like there's a lot of comment about dancing and balls, and I don't know if that's something that maybe is just dated language. But so that was one thought, and then my biggest concern is the fee structure.
Okay, dancing is actually considered because if you were to have a nightclub or they have dancing there, you would permit them to have a live music to dance to. Yes, it sounds like Footloose, but it is a way to permit and make sure they follow certain rules and guidelines and that what's going on there. I mean, I'm looking at the RSA right now in front of me. They're down to puppet shows and wax figures. So
Tumblers.
it is dated, but it's just a way to be able to work with the businesses to, one, the police know what's going on. Instead of having a complaint, we can say, does this person have a permit to do this? Yes, they do. So you can just go that route. Secondly, it's a way for us to work before granting a permit to certain stipulations. There's if somebody wants to have a fair or any situation in a park, then we'd have to say, look, you can do it these hours. You're only allowed to do these certain things, that kind of situation. If they want to have a live music, we can say, yes, you're allowed to, but you're only allowed to do it between these hours since we don't have a noise ordinance. But that's a way we can regulate it by granting it, by setting up standards that way. It's more of a case-by-case basis than having a town-wide, you can only make noise between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. Again, like, as we mentioned, if you have that one wedding or one situation where you doesn't really comply with this, it's not a public situation. It's just, it could be a nuisance, but the police know how to handle that in that situation. Versus if it's a business for-profit thing, we can regulate it and say, yes, you're allowed to open and do X, Y, Z, but you're only allowed to do it between these hours and, certain other stipulations there.
Can I just follow up?
Yeah, of course.
So here's just a more recent example, and I'm curious how this would there were, I don't know if it still happens, regular Black Lives Matters. I don't know if it protests work, but like, so exhibition at the bandstand, and so those people were out there every Saturday. Would they have to pay a fee?
We could waive that.
Okay, and
in that situation,
they have to be licensed.
They would have to come in and get a permit. If it's going to be those are always a difficult one because of freedom of speech situations, but you also don't want a situation where Dover had, where 3,000 people showed up, and luckily the police were involved at the beginning, we're told, so they could at least prepare and get the staff there, and they handed out the permit to do that.
It may sound a little bit treading on rights, but I did notice after the year that we had with the protest, it was interesting to see that a lot of communities across the country had those types of rules in place, mostly so first responders, police, fire, EMS. They knew what to expect. They knew roughly where it was going to happen. That way, there if something did, devolve or come out of control, they were able to better handle the situation and prevent, damage, loss of life, injury, that type of thing. So it seems a little bit backwards, but it kind of works to help mitigate any potential fallout.
I mean, it does open up the town to, which anything we do does, to liability if we deny something, if it's not for public safety. But that's, every town goes through that whenever they make a decision denying something like this. But no, yeah, it's more to, like I said, it's to regulate safety and quality of life issues. And we can say, look, this is the way it is. I mean, my biggest concern is, let me take it back, two things. One, we're still in the pandemic. We're still under emergency orders. We're still under emergency rules. So we're still going to go by what was set last year for outdoor seating, other events like that, because until the governor rescinds his order, that's probably the way it's going to go. I mean, most communities are doing that. However, as we've mentioned before, what happened this past year, we've learned a lot of ordinances, a lot of things are going to change. Again, not just for that one incident with live music, but for outdoor dining and some of the regulations they have there. So this, not this one completely, but this is the beginning of us reviewing and finding tools that we can do to help after. Again, I would go back to outdoor dining, that if you ever look at the regulations of what you need to have outdoor dining, I mean, you almost have to build a wall around every person sitting out there so they don't have that one little drop of alcohol going to the sidewalk. What we learned in this past year is that's not necessary. And it's not necessary. And that came up in every place around here, that didn't happen. So it's those kind of things that we're going to have to look at. We realized that there was no way to completely regulate a business when it came to loud noises. I mean, this is for anyone. And one thing we can do is say, look, we don't have an issue if you're playing your music inside. But if you want to have a live concert outside, we need to follow some regulations, and we'll give you a permit on that level. Yes, I know you had brought up the fee schedule. I reduced it from what the other communities were charging, but there is something in there so we can make sure that they do apply and they don't just forget about it. And again, I wouldn't charge nonprofits like the fraternal organizations. They're going to have to get one because they usually have bands or live music inside, but they're doing it for not for profit purpose. They're doing it to fundraise so they can stay alive. So usually you waive those fees when it comes.
Steve, if I may as well, Councilor Weinstein, if you take a look at the Chapter 286, it's Section 4. It does stipulate that there are maximums that can be charged on fees. So it's not as though either our community or other communities could go through and upcharge people, ridiculous sums that are not attainable, based on groups.
Yeah, and I can tell you too, we didn't go as deep in the next section. We licensed billiards tables. So I do remember that there was a time in the 80s when arcade games became big. They found an old state law that allowed you, I mean, they weren't thinking arcade games like Pac-Man, they were thinking arcades from like the 20s, but you're allowed to license those. So stores would have to pay a license for each machine they had in there. Most of those were rescinded, but that was an ongoing thing for a while.
Tony, did you have more, or did you want to pass off?
I can pass on, see if anybody else has any other questions or comments.
Sure. Councilor Brayback, Lieutenant Jordan.
Megan can go if she's ready.
No, I mean, my main thing was also just the fee. Wondering like, is there a cost that that fee is helping us pay for, or is it more of just like making a statement and charging something? I think, part of why we're doing this is to help businesses be able to continue to make money during a hard time. And so I think adding any undue cost, even if it is a pretty low one, um, unless there's, I'd be curious more, I guess, the reasoning of charging them anything.
It- There will be some, I mean, once we get this going, I mean, we're gonna have to do the processing of the fee. I mean, is it a lot? No. But I would rather have, a blanket one for each business if they want to do an annual fee license versus each special event. If they want to have one, then we do like $10, $20. I can't remember what we put in there. But I think in the long run, it'd be better for the businesses if we say, okay, $100 a year, we'll give you your permit. Here are the rules. And then we can have it in writing. I mean, we can always change the fee amount. That's not a big issue. But just that we have something there.
Tony.
Sorry, just along those lines. I guess I don't actually have a problem charging a business a fee if it's an annual fee. If it's a relatively small amount. If we're charging the Stone Church $100 for as an annual fee, I don't have a problem with that. The problem that I have is, again, I want to put it back to like that like sort of impromptu, though somewhat organized Black Lives Matter protest that was happening weekly that doesn't have a way to pay that fee. And so that's my concern, is that once we put it in an ordinance, then we're sort of required to charge it. And
No, it does give us the ability to waive it.
okay.
So that's the key. And I again, I wouldn't charge a fee for fraternal organizations but let me put it on the other hand though. If we have a situation where I'm not going to use any group. I'm just going to say there was a large protest and they were going to walk down the middle of Main Street. By charging them a fee, one, it's not going to offset the cost that we have to have police out there, but it will make them think, okay, what do we have to do to make that it's safe? Again, we can waive it for whatever reason, but there's got to be something in there to sort of I hate to use the stick term, but there's got to be a stick for the carrot. And again, I'm not saying, I know you keep saying Black Lives Matter one. I'm saying any group that wants to hold a protest or some sort of situation like that. The other thing is, the people who have been protesting have been very peaceful, very respectful, and there's nothing wrong there. The problem is the ones that don't in the future. You need to make sure there's some way that the police can go, do you have a permit to be on this public street to do this at this point? No, yes or no. And if they don't, then you got to move along, get one, and we'll let you back out here. But you've got to make sure you follow it the right way.
Steve, is there some way we can codify that like nonprofits or like non-organizational political movements would be exempt, or tailor it so for-profit businesses apply the fee, or does that get us into too much legal minutia?
I think it would, because then you're going to say, everybody will come out and say, well, my thing is a political statement, not a business, even though they're going to be making money off it. Like, here's an example too. How many people saw in the last 9 months a stand in almost every city that was selling President Trump materials? How would you say that that's not a political stand? Well, you knew it wasn't. It was for profit because that's what they were doing. The guys, I mean, they admitted in the newspaper, but somebody could just come out and say, that's for that's my political stance. I'm just supporting them. So that's where you get, I would rather go in there and say, look, we'll waive it if we can determine, versus we know you're just for profit. You got to pay for something.
So this is written away that this licensing board would have discretion.
Yes.
They're not mandated for,
Yep.
And I'm sure there would be an appeal process if things were denied or maybe, in their opinion, charged too unfairly.
I mean, we can always come back and say, they'd have to pay it and then come back later and say, we thought it was too high, or go to the council or go to court. But yeah, no, it's our right. I mean, the RSA says what we can charge. And that's what I would go with. I mean, again, if you want to go a lower number, that's fine. But I think there should be something in there.
Counselor, were you good?
So I agree. Like, I don't disagree that there should be something in there. I do